Let me ask you something. What if the only thing standing between the life you're living and the life you were born to live is you, not your past, not your environment, not your circumstances, but the version of you that keeps replaying the same thoughts, the same feelings, the same stories every single day? You wake up, check your phone, feel a familiar anxiety, and boom, you're already reliving yesterday. Again, same neural pathways, same emotional programs, same reality. You say you want to change, but you keep thinking the same thoughts. You say you want a better life, but you're addicted to the emotions of the old one. Here's the truth. You must force yourself to level up. Not someday. Not when you're ready. Now, asterisk, you wake up in the morning, and before you even open your eyes, your brain is already firing in predictable patterns. You're not just waking up, you're plugging into the past. The moment your eyes open, you remember who you are. You remember your problems. You remember your relationships, your responsibilities, your routines. You reach for your phone, check the notifications, and within seconds, you've already reconnected to a life you say you want to change. But here's the paradox: every thought you think, every emotion you feel, every habit you unconsciously step into is reinforcing the same identity you're trying to outgrow. The brain is a record of the past. It's every experience you've had. Every heartbreak, every disappointment, every triumph, it's all etched into the neural architecture of your mind. And when you think the same thoughts, in the same sequences, over and over again, you strengthen the same networks. Fire together, wire together. It's not just a concept, it's biology. And over time, those networks become more automatic, more rigid, more unconscious. You're no longer thinking, you're remembering, you're reliving. You're rehearsing the past under the illusion that it's the present moment. Now the body is the unconscious mind. What does that mean? It means your body has memorized your emotional reactions better than your conscious mind. So even when you tell yourself, I'm going to change, I'm going to think more positively, I'm going to break free, your body's already running an emotional program. And that program doesn't care what your conscious mind wants. It's addicted to the familiar. It craves what's predictable. If you've spent years in frustration or worry or self-doubt, your body has literally been conditioned to feel those emotions every day. You've become chemically dependent on your suffering. You might think you're just having a bad day. But in truth, you're experiencing withdrawal from the emotions that have shaped your identity. The moment you step outside your house, your environment triggers your memory. You pass by the same people, walk into the same office, have the same conversations, and your brain automatically begins to fire in the same old ways. You don't even realize it's happening because it feels so normal. But normal isn't necessarily healthy. Normal isn't necessarily growth. Normal is just familiar. And familiar is the enemy of evolution. When you understand that your brain and body are working together to keep you locked in a cycle, you also begin to realize the magnitude of the challenge ahead. Because the moment you decide to change, the moment you say, I will no longer be this person, you're entering into unknown territory. And the unknown is terrifying for the old self. That's when the body starts pushing back. That's when the cravings, the doubt, the fear begin to rise. Your body says, wait a minute, this doesn't feel like me. But of course it doesn't. You're becoming someone else. Imagine this. Your body has been your subconscious partner in maintaining your current reality. Every thought releases a chemical. Every emotion creates a signal. The longer you live in a certain state of being, the more familiar your body becomes with that chemistry. When you suddenly stop feeding it the stress hormones, the guilt, the shame, it reacts. It starts asking for the hit. That's why, even when you know better, you still find yourself sabotaging your progress. You say you want freedom, but you reach for the emotion of resentment. You say you want confidence, but you slip back into the comfort of fear. It's not your conscious intention, it's your subconscious addiction. This is why willpower is not enough. You can't override a decades-old emotional program with a fleeting burst of motivation. You need to recondition your mind and body to a new state of being, and that takes work. Deep, uncomfortable, committed work. You have to become aware of your thoughts before they become automatic. You have to notice the emotions before they pull you back into the past. You have to break the loop not once, not twice, but every single day, till a new pattern becomes your new normal. Think of your current self as a program running in the background. That program is built on your past. If you want to change your life, you have to uninstall that program and write a new one. But that doesn't happen through inspiration alone. It happens through repetition, through awareness, through choosing to feel unfamiliar emotions like joy, gratitude, empowerment, before your external world gives you a reason. That's when the magic begins, because your body starts believing it's living in a new reality. When that happens, the old self begins to fade. So many people want change without changing. They want new results with the same thoughts. They want miracles, but they won't change their energy. But reality responds to who you're being, not who you say you want to be. You have to become the future before it arrives. You have to wake up and decide that today you will think differently. You will feel differently. And when your internal world shifts, your external world has no choice but to mirror that change. Most people don't fail because they lack the ability to change. They fail because they're unwilling to be uncomfortable long enough for the change to take root. They check their external environment for proof that something is happening, and when they don't see immediate results, they revert. They go back to what's easy. But if you can learn to sit in the discomfort of uncertainty, you can teach your body to feel safe in the unknown. You open the door to transformation, because that's where your new future lives. It's not in the predictable, not in the known, but in the possibility of who you've never been before. You are not your past. You are not your pain. You are not your circumstances. You are the consciousness that can observe, choose, and change. But you have to step into that role. You have to become greater than your environment, greater than your emotions, greater than the story that's kept you small. And that begins by breaking the habit of being yourself. The self that's addicted to the old chemistry. The self that's wired to survive, not thrive. When you understand that every time you fire a thought, you're wiring your brain. When you realize that every time you feel an emotion, you're conditioning your body, you begin to grasp the power you hold. You are the programmer. You are the creator. But you must take responsibility for every signal you send, every thought you allow, every emotion you embrace, because those signals are either pulling you back into the past or projecting you into your potential. And the moment you say, no more, the moment you draw a line in the sand and declare that the old self will no longer be the dominant force, you begin the process of transformation. Not because the external world changes instantly, but because you do. And once you change, everything else must follow. Asterisk change isn't comfortable. It was never meant to be. It's the moment you decide to transform, to move beyond the known. You're not just making a choice, you're declaring a war within yourself. You're stepping into a battle between the familiar past and the unfamiliar future, between who you have been and who you are becoming. And the moment that declaration is made, your body, which has become addicted to the emotional patterns of your old life, will start to protest. Not because it's trying to hurt you, but because it's trying to protect the version of you knows how to keep alive. We have to understand that our biology is designed to keep us safe, not necessarily to make us evolve. So when you try to break free, when you dare to imagine a life beyond your limitations, your nervous system sends out an alert. Your subconscious whispers, this doesn't feel right. You start to feel uneasy, anxious, uncertain. But those aren't signs you're doing something wrong. They are signs you're doing something right. They're the proof that you're stepping into the unknown. The unknown is the only place where real change can happen. Think of the body as a highly intelligent survival machine. For years, maybe even decades, it has memorized every emotional reaction you've ever had. It knows what anger feels like, what guilt feels like, what sadness feels like, and through repetition, those emotions became part of your identity. So when you suddenly try to install a new belief or generate a new emotion, say, confidence, gratitude, or joy, the body says no. It doesn't recognize that emotion. It doesn't trust it. It's not chemically familiar, so it pushes back. That pushback is what most people mistake for a sign to stop. They say, I feel weird. This isn't working. Maybe this just isn't who I am. But that discomfort is exactly the territory you must travel through if you're serious about transformation. The body wants to return to what it knows. If you're not conscious, if you're not fully aware, will trick you into surrendering your future for the comfort of your past. Imagine you've spent years feeling unworthy. Every time you experienced rejection, every time you felt overlooked, every time you told yourself you weren't enough, your body recorded those emotions. It got used to them. It learned how to function with them. And now, when you wake up and say, I am worthy, I am enough, I love myself, you may feel like a liar. That's not because you're wrong. It's because you're introducing an unfamiliar chemical signature. Your brain hasn't fired those thoughts often enough. Your body hasn't had time to memorize those feelings. You are not lying, you are learning. It takes courage to feel something you've never felt before, to wake up every morning and choose the emotion of your future when everything in your outer world still reflects your past, to feel abundant when your bank account says otherwise, to feel healthy when your body still aches, to feel whole when you've been broken. But that is the essence of transformation. That is how you train your body to believe in a reality you have not yet experienced. You are reconditioning your biology to a new mind. And yes, it will be uncomfortable. You'll feel resistance. You'll feel fear. You'll feel like giving up. But that resistance is the old self dying. It's the chemical withdrawal of your past identity. It's your body trying to keep you anchored in what was. And every time you choose to move through it, to feel it without feeding it, to take back your power, you are no longer a victim of your programming. You become the creator of your new self. People often ask, how do I know if I'm on the right path? The answer is simple. If it feels unfamiliar, you're doing it right. If it feels uncertain, you're doing it right. If you're waking up and choosing to live from the inside out, choosing your emotional state, instead of reacting to your environment, you are breaking the habit of being yourself. That is not easy. That is mastery. Discomfort is not the enemy. It is the price of admission to your next level. It is the evidence that you are no longer operating from the same emotional signature you've memorized for years. When you begin to notice your own triggers, when you catch yourself before you react, when you choose peace instead of anger, love instead of fear, patience instead of frustration, you're rewiring your brain. You're teaching your body a new way to be. But that process requires repetition. It requires daily practice. This isn't about thinking positively once or twice. This is about becoming so familiar with your future identity that it starts to feel more real than your past. You must fall in love with the vision of your future self. Not because it already exists in the outer world, but because it already exists in your mind. And when you can feel the emotions of that future before it's manifested, you begin to collapse time. You begin to draw that future to you. You're not faking it. You're creating it. The brain does not know the difference between a real experience and one you vividly imagine with emotion. So if you can sit in meditation, rehearse your new future, feel it with every cell of your being, your brain begins to map it. Your body begins to memorize it. And your energy begins to shift. Suddenly, you're no longer waiting for your environment to change to feel better. You're changing your internal environment firsthand. That is when the outer world begins to respond. When you truly commit to the process of transformation, you begin to see discomfort as a signpost, not a problem. You start to realize that every time you resist the urge to return to the old emotions, you're strengthening the new self. Every time you sit with the unfamiliar and choose to trust the unknown, you're building resilience. Every time you feel fear and move forward anyway, you're becoming more conscious than your body, more powerful than your past. The greatest version of you is on the other side of discomfort, but you have to go through it. You can't think your way around it. You can't bypass it with information. You have to feel it, face it, and move through it with intention. That's what levels you up. That's what separates transformation from inspiration. That's the work. Not the flashy breakthroughs, not the highs of temporary motivation, but the quiet. It's a consistent choice to feel different, act different, think different, no matter what. So yes, it will feel unfamiliar. It will feel like loss. You are losing the old self. You are letting go of an identity you've carried for years. But what you're gaining is far more powerful, a new state of being. One that is not ruled by the past, but inspired by the future. And the more you practice living in that state, the more natural it becomes. The discomfort fades, the resistance weakens. And one day you wake up, and the person you used to be feels like a distant memory. Not because you forced it, but because you chose, over and over again, to become someone new. Asterisk, the future you desire is not something you chase, something you become. You can't simply wish for a new life while thinking the same thoughts, feeling the same emotions, and behaving in the same ways. That's not how reality changes. You don't get what you want, you get who you are. And who you are right now is a reflection of everything you've practiced being. Your thoughts have become your beliefs. Your emotions have become your identity. Your behaviors have become your destiny. So if you truly want to create a new reality, you must first become the person who lives in that reality. You must rewire your mind for change. It all starts with intention. A clear, coherent intention and internal picture of what your future looks like. Not vague, not general, but specific. Who are you in this future? How do you speak? How do you walk? How do you show up in the world when you no longer carry the weight of your past? You no longer feel lack, fear, resentment, or guilt. That future version of you thinks differently. They respond differently. They radiate a different energy. They don't need to prove anything, control anything, or fight anything. They've become aligned with the life they once imagined. But you don't wait to become that person. You start being them now. The brain is like a map. When you consistently imagine a new future with clarity and emotion, you begin to fire and wire new neural pathways. And the more you activate those pathways, the more you install a new blueprint for your identity. It's like downloading new software into your brain. Over time, those new thoughts begin to override the old ones. Those new beliefs begin to take root. But thoughts alone are not enough. Thoughts are the language of the brain. Emotions are the language of the body. You need both. You need coherence between the head and the heart. You must feel your future as if it has already happened. When you combine a clear intention with an elevated emotion, you begin to recondition your body to a new mind. Think about it. Every time you emotionally embrace the feeling of your future gratitude, love, freedom, abundance, your body starts believing it's living in that experience. And if your body begins to believe it, you've just stepped into the quantum field. With a new energy, that energy becomes your broadcast signal. It becomes the magnet that draws events, people, and opportunities to match it. Not because you're trying to make it happen, but because you've already become the version of you that belongs in that future. Most people live their lives waiting for their environment to change so they can feel better. They think, when I have more money, then I'll feel abundant. When I meet the right person, then I'll feel love. When I get the job, then I'll feel successful. But that's backwards. That's living as a victim to circumstances. That's letting the outer world dictate your inner world. If you want to be the creator of your life, you must reverse that formula. You must feel the emotion of your future. Now, even before the evidence shows up, that's when you become powerful. That's when you become magnetic. That's when life begins to reorganize itself around your new energy. The challenge is this. Your current identity has been shaped by years of repetition. You've memorized a way of being based on past experiences. If you wake up every morning and think the same thoughts, feel the same emotions, and follow the same routines, you're reaffirming that identity every single day. You're firing the same circuits. You're reinforcing the same chemicals. You're staying in the known. But the moment you decide to do the opposite, to think new thoughts, to feel new emotions, to visualize a new reality, you begin to change your brain. You begin to signal new genes. You begin to move from being a victim of your life to being the creator of it. It doesn't happen overnight. It takes consistent practice. Just like building muscle in the gym, building a new mind requires repetition and focus. Every time you catch yourself slipping into the thoughts and emotions of your old self, you have a choice. You can continue down the familiar path, or you can pause, breathe, and choose again. You can remind yourself of your future. You can reconnect with the vision. You can bring back the elevated emotion. And in that moment, you are no longer the same person. You're no longer reacting to life. You're rehearsing a new life into. Being mental rehearsal is one of the most powerful tools you have. When you close your eyes and begin to mentally walk through your day as your future self, your brain begins to install the hardware needed for that experience. You start to program your body emotionally and neurologically for that outcome. The body begins to feel safe in the unfamiliar. The brain begins to expect the unexpected. And when you open your eyes, you carry that energy into your life. It become less reactive, less tied to the past, more intentional, more in tune with possibility. This is not fantasy. This is neuroscience. Your brain doesn't know the difference between an experience you've lived and one you've imagined vividly with emotion. So the more you practice stepping into your future self mentally and emotionally, the more you collapse the distance between where you are and where you want to be. Time becomes irrelevant. You're no longer waiting for change, you're the change. You might be asking, how long will it take? But that question comes from the old self, one who measures time, who looks to the external for proof, who wants. Guarantees the new self doesn't need to ask. The new self is too busy being, too busy living from the end, too busy embodying the energy of the outcome. And when that becomes your dominant state of being, life will begin to mirror it back to you in ways that seem miraculous. But it's not a miracle. It's you consciously aligning with a new reality through the power of your mind and body. So you must ask yourself each day, who am I rehearsing to be? Who am I mentally and emotionally becoming? What thoughts am I cultivating? What emotions am I memorizing? Am I thinking from the past or feeling into the future? Day, you're either reinforcing the identity you're trying to leave behind or becoming the one you've been dreaming of. There is no neutral. There is no pause button. There is only conscious creation or unconscious repetition. The greatest transformation happens when you stop living according to your senses and start living according to your vision. When you know. Longer let the conditions of the world define who you are, but instead let who you are redefine the conditions of your world. That is when you've reprogrammed your mind for a new reality. That is when the quantum field begins to respond, not to your wishes, but to your frequency. Because you're no longer someone who wants change. You're someone who is change. Someone who thinks it, feels it, lives it before the evidence ever arrives. You don't attract what you want. You attract who you are. The energy you broadcast. The emotions you live in. The identity you embody. That's what the quantum field responds to. And this is where most people struggle, because they're waiting for their life to change before they change. They think they need the new job before they feel successful, the relationship before they feel loved, the healing before they feel whole. But if you're waiting, you're not creating. If your external world needs to shift before you can feel different inside, you're living as a victim to your environment. You're giving away your power. The quantum field doesn't respond to your wishes, your hopes, or your goals. It responds to your state of being. And your state of being is the combination of what you think and how you feel. It's your energy, signature. So if you wake up every day thinking the same thoughts, feeling the same emotions, and behaving in the same ways, you're sending out the same signal. And if that signal is based on your past's stress, lack, doubt, or resentment, then you are recreating your past over and over again. You're telling the field, this is who I am, and life reflects it back to you. But you are not limited to the identity that your past created. You are not defined by the emotions you memorized or the stories you've been telling yourself. You are pure potential. You are consciousness in a body. And that means you have the power to choose, to become, to generate a new way of being. But it doesn't happen by chance. It happens by choice. You have to get clear about the future you want, and then you must step into the version of you who already lives there, not tomorrow, not when conditions change. Right now, every time you wake up in the morning, you have a decision to make. You can fall into the automatic programs of the past and let your body run the show. Or you can take the reins and begin to create your day intentionally. You can tune your mind to the thoughts of your future and teach your body what that future feels like. And when you do this over and over again, something extraordinary begins to happen. You start to become that future. You start to embody it so deeply that the line between who you are and who you're becoming begins to blur. This is how you create a new personal reality, not by force, not by obsessing over outcomes, but by becoming, by living in alignment with the energy of the life you desire. When you do this, the field starts responding in ways you couldn't predict. Synchronicities begin to show up, doors open, people appear, not because you manipulated them into existence, but because you became a vibrational match for them. You became the person who belongs in that reality. But here's the truth that many people avoid. Cannot become someone new and still hold on to who you've been. Can't step into your future while clinging to the emotions of your past. If you want transformation, there's a part of you that must die. The self that is addicted to fear, that seeks validation, that needs control. That version of you has to dissolve. And that dissolution feels like loss. It feels like uncertainty. It feels like stepping into the dark with no guarantees. But that is the cost of becoming. There's the price of evolution. And if you can sit with that discomfort without running back to the known, you will find something deeper, something greater, a new self, waiting to emerge. You were never meant to live by default. You were designed to create. And your life, exactly as it is right now, is the feedback of your previous state of being. So if you don't like what you see, if you feel unfulfilled, stuck, or disconnected, you don't need to fix the outer world. You need to go inward and change the signal you're sending. Change the thoughts you're rehearsing. Change the emotions you're embodying. Change the energy you radiate. And when you do, the mirror that is your life must reflect it. There is a version of you that already exists in the quantum field, a version that is healthy, abundant, free, and full of love. That version is not separate from you. It's not a fantasy or a dream. It's a real potential waiting to be chosen. But to access it, you have to become energetically compatible with it. You have to tune into that possibility with your whole being, not just for a few minutes a day, but as a way of life. You have to live as if it's already true. And when you do, you start to collapse the time between the intention and the manifestation. You may not know exactly how it will happen. You may not be able to see the full path. That's not your job. Your job is to be the person who would live that reality.
No.
Your job is to wake up every day and choose that state of being regardless of your environment. The more you do, the more your nervous system begins to align with the unknown. The more your body learns to feel safe in the unfamiliar. The more your subconscious becomes a partner in creation instead of a barrier. This is the real work, not thinking about change. Not wishing for it, but becoming it. Becoming aware of the moments when you want to go back to the old self. When the doubt creeps in, when the fear returns, when the anger tries to grab your attention. And in those moments, you pause, you breathe, you remember your future. You reconnect with the emotion, and you choose differently. That choice, repeated again and again, is what rewires your brain. It's what reconditions your body. It's what changes your life. It's not about perfection. It's about persistence. You're not trying to become a different person. You're remembering who you really are beneath the layers of programming and pain. You're removing the blocks that have kept you small and revealing the self that has always been whole. When that self begins to lead your life, you become unstoppable. It's not because everything suddenly becomes easy, but because your inner world is no longer defined by the outer world. Because you've become so anchored in your vision, so committed to your new state of being that nothing can shake you. Your destiny is not a matter of fate. It's a matter of frequency. You don't find the new you. You become the new you. And when you do, the universe responds not randomly, but precisely, mathematically, energetically. You're being it. You're no longer hoping for a better life. You're living as if it's already yours. And in that alignment, in that elevated coherence, the impossible becomes not just possible, but inevitable. Asterisk, so here's the challenge. Force yourself to level up. Not because it's easy, but because the life you deserve depends on it. Drop a comment. Below, I am ready to level up. If you're committed to your future self, if you're done living in the past, if you're ready to evolve, say it loud, say it proud, and share this message with someone else who needs to hear it, because the new you isn't found. The new you is created.